everyone, I'm Saskia, I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Country Living. This lady needs no introduction because Liz has done it, but one thing you might not know about Emma Bridgewater is that she didn't go to art school, she certainly never studied pottery, and she didn't have the first clue about building a business. She was a 23-something with a dream. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Jeremy Clarkson, traitors, plans that she's got for the next year. But I want to start with your 23-year-old you, because it's the most inspiring story of seeing a gap in the market and thinking, I'll fill that gap, I'll launch a business. So tell us, take us back to the 1980s and you're looking for a birthday present for your mother.
I find it hard to think about now, but there is nothing like the recklessness of ignorance and the brilliance of not knowing how much you don't know. I knew nothing about nothing. I mean, a bit about romantic poets. Perfect equipment for life. And I'd had a powerful hallucination. Well, I'd been looking for a business idea. I was kind of asking the universe to show me my vocation. And so far, it had only shown me some rather messy catering with one of my cousins. Thank God we didn't kill anyone. But I was actively sort of looking for an idea. And in a china shop one day, looking for some birthday presents for my mum. Actually, when I think about it, her birthday is in August, so it'll have been probably the very end of July. I would have been shopping quite late, might even have been just before her birthday. And I thought, I walked into a china shop, and I couldn't believe how completely disconnected everything they were selling was from her, the way she lived, which was how she and her friends lived, which was quite chaotic. They'd all mislaid their wedding china, and mostly their husbands, and sort of started again. She dove into the 60s. My parents parted in 68, I think, and Mum moved to Oxford with me and my brother and sister and started again and had the next 10 years were, I think, probably the happiest time of, I don't know, I've never said this before, I think there probably was the happiest time of her life. And that was what I grew up in, that very sunshiny, happy place that she married an undergraduate, 11 years younger than her.
We could do a whole talk on Emma's mother, I'm feeling. We might have to do that.
Yes, I'd be so happy. That would be so much more interesting. But in the shop, I was annoyed. It seemed so baffling. Why was all this nonsense there? And I had a powerful hallucination of a dresser like her kitchen dresser, with nice, mismatched, colourful, preferably a bit handmade, kitchen china. I never really think of it as pottery, and I've always felt a bit itchy about the whole being called a potter thing, because I didn't go to art school, and I've only had about 3 or 4 days experience potting very recently, so I always felt I'm not a potter, I'm an industrialist, as the thing got going. So I wasn't thinking handmade, but I was thinking it had to have a human element, because it had to be as sort of variegated as Mum's life. And very quickly, I got a friend gave him one name, which I scribbled on a fag packet, literally, at a party, with Terry snatching the card back and saying, ring Sam tomorrow and make a date with him. He's a model maker. He'll turn your shapes. I said, well, I'm not ready. I haven't drawn them yet. And he said, well, put yourself together. Just draw them tomorrow. And make a date with him as soon as you can. And then come and see me when you're done and tell me all about it. And it was like that. It all sort of, I don't know, it seems as if I'm just telling a sort of fairy story. But it was very simple. And I went to Euston, got off at Stoke-on-Trent, had no idea what was waiting for me. Got in a taxi, bounced across the city through the potholes with very, very short suspension to something called Chemical Lane in Longbridge Hayes. As the name implies, it wasn't a salubrious address. And I walked into his very small, it was just a little shed, and he had a team of about 15 at that point, and they were making, and I just knew this idea was going to happen there.
So you met Sam. Sam made your samples. What had you drawn?
I knew it was probably going to be about mugs, and indeed our business is about 60% of our whole turnover is mugs. mug sales. But that didn't feel enough. I wanted it to feel like a dresser story, a whole life story, a whole kitchen. And Sam very sensibly wouldn't make plates. That wasn't his thing. So it was a mug and a bowl. I think we call it the old bowl now. It was just a small bowl. And a milk jug and a dish, so that it kind of felt like a family.
And what about the decoration?
What indeed? I mean, I was making it up as I went along. But it was the art school project that I'd been sort of subliminally longing for, and that I had wanted to do art at A-level. And I'd argued quite vehemently with my dad about it. But I was persuaded by him, and I think he was right. He just said, if you can do all academic subjects, do. And if you can go to university and do an academic subject, do. It's great prep for life. He had some quite sort of, what's the word? I mean, he felt it was all about getting the right qualifications and starting on a great salary. My mother's father, who's a clergyman, had a very different view, which is your education is for your life. And reading English literature is definitely something I've been glad of every day, though it doesn't ostensibly feed the business.
So we're with Sam in Chemical Lane. He makes your samples.
He's made me the shapes.
The shapes, but you haven't thought how
and
to
I've
decorate
shown
them
him
yet.
some scraps of old spongeware, shards that my then boyfriend and his brother had collected on the foreshore of the Thames. They'd been mudlarking. And they'd got all the windowsills in their houses in Brixton were covered in shards of pottery. And I could see there was something there. This looked like the idea of like potato printing. And Sam was just encouraging. I mean, he didn't get involved in that. I think looking back, he always needed some cash, and he just was interested that I paid him cash every time I went there in increasingly large amounts, which quite quickly grabbed the attention of my bank manager, who I hadn't actually discussed any of it with, and I was trading out of my current account. But he was quite pleased it was no longer clothes. And
yeah. Is it true that the samples that didn't work, you made your friends and family buy, and you sold at a stall in Covent Garden?
Plenty of that, but the Covent Garden stall was much more important because I needed to see whether my hunch was right, that people would like this. I was shameless about drilling my family and friends to help. And I was, sort of sofa surfing a lot of the time and longing for someone to take me out to supper. Really quite hungry quite a lot of the time. But it was much more important to me to see if I put them on a stall in Covent Garden, I think it still goes on the Jubilee Market. It was completely critical for me. And I always say to people, if you're thinking of a startup, do put your idea, product or service or whatever, put it at risk of sale. Because unless there's a feeding frenzy, you might be going to give yourself a whole lot of work for nothing. And there was a very interesting kind of response, which was, it was obviously quite expensive. It had to be, because I was buying it from Sam. He was charging me a sort of straight wholesale price, and I knew I couldn't afford to set up a shop, so I was planning to sell it to shops. So I was sort of testing a twice marked up price, and I suppose thrice marked up at the time. And so they were about twice as expensive as any other mug. And so people would come lunging towards it, then sort of spring back as if electrified when they read the price, and then come back again, slightly cross, but definitely wanting them. And then there'd be my best thing, then started right at the beginning of women fighting over the mugs. Because if there isn't that kind of desire for your project, I just don't know why. I think you've got to go back to the drawing board and amp it up.
And this is pre-internet, pre-social media.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming Yellow Pages was involved when you rang a list of shops to see if they would...
No, magazines. Magazines were involved. I identified some of the brands that I loved, and I looked at who stocked them, literally in the back of various magazines.
Country Living
was started at almost exactly the same time.
I know, we're the same age.
Yeah. Good Housekeeping, House and Garden, they were all my friends. And the magazines, and I trawled them and made a list of God, I can't remember, I think it was 150 shops. And I sent them a photograph and some information and some prices and a little handwritten postcard saying, if you don't mind, I'm going to get in touch with you. And I hope to make an appointment to come and see you, and I hope you might order some of this, because I'm really excited about it. And some of them said, no, you've got the wrong shop, but actually you ought to try the shop over the road, they might like it. And some of them just said, come now. I didn't really get any bad response. Sometimes I just got the wrong place. And they almost all ordered. And
did Sam know this was coming his way?
he was hoping. I mean, he's a wonderful character, very, really, really good craftsman. And he just wanted some business.
I read a very touching quote from you that about Stoke-on-Trent, because I know that's hugely important to the business story. And you said, I went to Stoke-on-Trent just as everyone else was leaving, and I was astonished by the sadness at the end of manufacturing there, because Wedgwood was leaving, Royal Dalton was leaving.
Running for the door.
Yeah.
And they seemed, the saddest thing was that they seemed to believe that the skills and traditions of Staffordshire could and should and would be bought somewhere in an undeveloped economy where they could exploit less. They could find cheaper labour and not worry about the pollution that might entail. And it did just seem really sad. And it also, I have often felt very angry about it. And I think that the fact that successive governments, Margaret Thatcher takes the blame, and I don't mind about that, but it had been planned for some time that we will move away from heavy industry. But it's not that we're going to stop needing the things that heavy industry makes, but we'll get other people to do our dirty work, and we'll all get office jobs. But they didn't make any effort to mitigate the effect that that was going to have on those communities. And I don't know why but I was so clear. I was furious, and I did start to say to friends and try and persuade people to come, because there's a great unknowing about things that people don't want to know about. They don't learn about. But I felt very strongly there and then that there would be consequences. You couldn't just dump hundreds of thousands of people and say, you're on your own now.
And you're still there today. It's hugely important. Tell us about what's there today if people go and see you there.
I think we employ about 360 people. It might be a bit more now, it's Christmas. The warehouse will have taken on some temps. It fluctuates a bit. There are some people who come and go, but there's a solid core of 300 or so working in Stoke in the factory mostly, but also in the warehouse, which is huge, and the shops and the office there. And it's a fantastic community that I just feel infinite pleasure and sort of fun and a privilege, really, to have been able to do that, to have been a part of that, because they know historically kind of what a factory is supposed to be like. And they were entertained that there were quite a lot of things I didn't know about, which didn't get introduced, like conveyor belts to make them work faster.
Have you ever, though, had pressure over the years to outsource? Has anybody ever suggested you might, retailers wanting
No, not retailers, really. No, it's come up. There was a very marvellous moment when there came a moment when Sam's business went under with no warning, and we scrambled around. By that stage, it was a few years later, about 6 years in, 5 years in, something like that, and Matthew and I were married, and we scrambled around and we lashed together the money to buy his business over the weekend. And my parents-in-law had a stake, and another friend of ours and his new wife Max had bought a steak. We were all having lunch, and the very nice new wife walked straight into this and said, I don't get it. The polka dot mugs are selling so well. Why don't you just make them in China? There was an awful silence. My father-in-law said, that's the kind of talk we used to call appeasement.
Good Lord.
Susan shriveled up briefly, then recovered.
She recovered. So I think there's not going to be a single person in this room who can't picture a piece of Emma Bridgewater pottery, but describe it. What's the aesthetic?
It's about a feeling of welcome and ease, and that's a direct homage to my mum, who was, as said before, she was very remarkable. And her thing was life. She made a beautiful life as a gift, really, to the world. And she wouldn't have, she'd say, oh, for God's sake, what are you talking about? But that's what she was like. It was intensely generous. And what she did, I've worked out that some people's lives, they might be very sort of well-organised and beautiful, but they're quite often reflecting them. Mum was very unself-conscious, and her kitchen was messy and muddly, but the food was always delicious, but it was quite often burnt, or not enough of it, or she didn't fuss, she didn't sweat the small stuff at all. And that was really what I wanted the aesthetic to be about. So that it feels familiar, like you've always known it. The minute you've kind of seen it and committed, you've always had it. It's always been part of your life. Didn't it used to belong to my granny? You know, I wanted that feeling of, this is easy stuff. It's not going to sort of be a nuisance in your life.
It's been loved by previous tea drinkers.
Well, I like the idea. I mean, I am a very, very compulsive buyer of old pottery. I mean, it's an absolutely lifelong thing. I was spending my pocket money on little China. I remember buying a little earthenware jug because I felt sorry for it. Because it was broken and nobody wanted it. And the shapes were just supposed to be, modest is not quite the right word, just cosy and like they'd always been part of the furniture.
And in those early days, where was the inspiration for the decoration coming from? Because it's quite whimsical, it's very recognisable for that quirky, whimsical quality.
Well, the technique is a glorious gift. And it's an old way of decorating that had completely, nobody was making spongeware. Nicky Moss might have got started around then in Ireland, but I didn't know anything about him. And I'm sure there were craft potters like him who did know. I mean, in every pottery there are many sponges, and in my mind, the sponge comes to your hand very readily, and it's a lovely thing. And I started with natural sponges, stippling and splattering, usually cobalt blue. And then trying to work out, I really need to cut some motifs to print, and turning the sponge over and knowing that it had a hard base and suspecting that was what I needed. And I could only find real sponges in very expensive chemists in Jermyn Street and places. So it's very, very difficult. I go around squeezing all the sponges and inspecting the underneath of them. And what I realised I wished I was on the quay in Turkey where they snip the root, because they grow on quite a long stalk, depending on how old they are. But they cut those off and toss them back in the sea. And I needed that sort of hard base. And I did find enough to just get started to cut. I think I remember cutting some little flowers and a bow in the root of a sponge. I mean, there were several things like that, but it had to be very small. You could only really get a couple of centimetres of... so I felt this is too constraining. I like constraint. I like it not being complicated, but this is too difficult. And evolved with the same mudlarking boyfriend, the idea of furniture sponge, really the nastiest stuff you can imagine, turns out to be incredibly useful. We started experimenting with cutting out motifs, obviously, with cigarettes going, and the window may be open for years until someone went, that stuff's really toxic.
Right.
And now the girls who cut the sponges do, they have extractors, masks, and.
Were you keeping sketchbooks? How was all of this creativity being fueled?
I think the thing of not having gone to art school, not having done art A-level even, there was quite a lot of very useful pent-up creativity.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was about. Sorry about the cough.
We've both got matching coughs, so we decided we could just reinfect each other. In an age of AI, I think that human touch is more important than ever. And I think it's what people love. But how many pairs of hands are touching an Emma Bridgewater mug?
We're trying to make it fewer.
How many is it at the moment?
And it does vary, and it depends if it's decorated with a print.
So that mug, how many pairs of hands would that have gone through?
Oh, it's something like 40.
40 people.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
I mean, it shouldn't be that many, really. And the trundling conveyor belts that I didn't want aesthetically or sort of socially. I'd like there being chat and all that. Sometimes I think that I should have done that. I mean, obviously, in commonsensical terms, there's two things get carried around too much. But there's a brilliant woman who took on. I love saying that there's a woman running production director, and she's quietly transforming the factory so that there is a lot less handling without losing the joy.
But you remain a champion of British artisans and craft, and you're the patron of Country Living's 40 Best Artisans competition, and we have some of our... Have we got our artisans here today? Put your hands up.
Oh, good.
They are.
That's so exciting.
These are our 40 best artisans.
I loved absolutely
welcome to all of you. What makes the artisan crafts in this country so special?
Okay, AI is big and scary, and it's coming at us. And I think that we need, craft is the defense line. And whether you only admire and appreciate it and buy from craftspeople, but ideally, I think we all rediscover our haptic skills, and we have to develop those skills, but rediscover the creator that every single person is born as. And it gets stomped out of you by your own kind of self-criticism, but currently, very, very, school doesn't have nearly enough craft, art, singing, all the things that will help build resilience and creativity seem to have gone. But let's hope they come back. I like there's moves at the moment to reflect on this and realise and actually live out the idea that we don't need very many academics, and putting 100% of children through an academic education might not be the most sensible thing. But crafts are the crafts make you happy. They keep you sane. We're meant to be making things. If you're not, this is what I think it's what offended me when I went to Stoke, this awful idea that we would stop making things. We're only about 4 potteries away from having to not being able to make the plates to eat off in this country. How bonkers is that? Just feels unnecessarily... it's just awful. Because although the factory is a factory, i.e., there's a lot of people involved in the making of one mug, it's a set of cooperative workshops, and if the guys behind you or the gals aren't doing their stuff, it's not going to work. So they're all reliant on the previous workshop to have got it right. And then at the end of the day, there's actually in the mornings you open the kilns and there's everything that we made yesterday, and that's got an inherent satisfaction in it. I think that is the direct antidote to AI. And we should all make. I think I've said that too many times. Do you have a yearning to master anything? Is there a Emma Bridgewater basket waiting to be woven? I make enormous quilts, incredibly elaborately, all sewn by hand with very long literary quotes, longer and longer and longer, appliqued onto them. I think I've just made my 14th.
Where are these quilts?
They belong to my children, my nephews and nieces.
How incredible.
And now, at the moment, I'm rediscovering crochet. But when I started doing this was when the kids were small. I'm just trying to think. It was 25 years ago, so I didn't do it. And I've noticed this. Friends of mine who are watching me absolutely loving rediscovering crochet, and I show them, and their husbands go, "Oh, it's not very, what are you doing?" And it makes them quite uneasy, which I quite like. But the business of And Matthew found it very difficult when I started. He was sort of fidgety about it. He said, but you've got an enormous creative career. Why are you doing this kind of raggedy stuff? And I said, well, no, but this is mine. This is really me, and there's no money involved.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we've got to be really careful to find the experiences that don't have any kind of transactional element in them. The wonderful, wonderful thing of just going outside. Or making a cake. You don't need the best things in life for free.
What Emma Bridgewater pottery would we find in your kitchen? Do you have a favourite mug in the morning?
I have been trying to declutter. I've spent a year only very slightly decluttering.
Imagine Emma Bridgewater saying, I'm decluttering, would you like this box of,
well,
my God.
I took a lot of stuff which had backed up in the cupboards over years and years of shoots and things being sent to me for approval and whatever. And there are so many things that I love, but there were quite a few that I didn't need to keep. And I did a car boot.
Oh my God, where? When is the next one?
The car boot sale is closed, but it's opening again in the spring. I had one of the best days I've had for a very, very long time. I mean, blubbing with happiness. There was a whole lot of nurses helping one of their sister ship spend her redundancy pay. All of it.
Did they know who you were and what they were buying?
Yes.
What incredible.
My kids were at school with a lot of their children.
Right.
I was back on the original turf when the family moved to Norfolk. Elsham was our shopping town.
Right.
So there were loads of all my friends.
Decluttered your kitchen. So what was your morning cup of tea this morning drunk out of?
Some double blue spot spongeware pattern that was inspired when I went to Walthamstow not that long ago to find William Morris's childhood home. It's a really nice little museum. If you haven't been, go. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, see a little brand sign saying museum. Immediately turn off the road and go and see it. But it's particularly good, and he's God, really.
He is God. I'm looking for Vicky, our country living editor, who would agree that William Morris is God. The Traitor's mug. Has everybody seen the Traitor's mug? It's utterly genius. Traitor or faithful. How quickly did that go from idea to actual mug?
Okay, here's the beauty of this. I don't know.
Excellent.
There's a tea. I mean, I've just taken 3 months, and I'd like several more, out of the business for the first time in 40 years. And the joy of that is there is an amazing team, some of them quite new, and it's sort of what's coming together at the moment is, I want it to go on without me. You know, I really, really do not want those 350 jobs in Stoke to be dependent on me. I need to know that the company is in good shape and in good hands. So Clever Thea, who does the social content, I think it was her idea, and you can have an idea, ring the studio, chit chat, and someone will quickly go, oh, don't go home yet, just quickly do this for Thea. And it might get on the kiln. And you can see it tomorrow, but certainly the day after you'll see it.
Just brilliant.
So sometimes in pottery you think, oh my God, I can't wait I'm so impatient to see it fired. But compared to a lot of things, it's a very, very, very quick process, particularly the joy of spongeware, the genius of spongeware, the simple printing with a sponge. It's that immediate. Whereas obviously Matthew's lovely designs, he could fake, and you can but you can't. It takes ages.
You were, though, involved with the Jeremy Clarkson Diddley Squat Farm collaboration.
Only right at the beginning, and
how did it come about? Talk us through. Did
they got in touch with us, which is really no. We're not on those terms.
Not on those terms.
And
okay.
I don't think we probably will be. But it was one of those absolutely marvellous moments. I heard it from a distance, and then I went into the studio to make sure, and I'm completely charmed that what they were responding to was the spongeware designs. And it's a build on, again, it's such a pleasure having a company that makes, having a factory, so that you can rake through the archive. We get Tommy to rake through the archive for you, and he can immediately find the mugs you're talking about. You can put them in front of someone who's interested, and you can have a creative conversation immediately, because there were things that they'd remembered seeing. And some of his pithier sayings are kind of
Did you reject any?
No, I don't think so. I was keen that we put as much joke into it as possible.
Yeah.
But in fact, I was probably a bit wrong. I said the gumboots. Where's the joke? They said, we've just got to have gumboots. Okay.
It's a
Whereas
great,
I like
great collection.
the dog one where it says sit, heel, stay, and the dog's bolting.
Yeah.
That kind of.
Yeah,
simple,
they're
simple
great.
joke. We're not talking about elaborate jokes.
Does anything not work out? Can you remember a design that didn't work out?
Loads and loads. The main thing is quickly get that, put it on sale and onto the next thing. And what doesn't work? There are some things that, samples that emerge that I dislike so much that I wish I'd smashed them. But not very many. That's the only real, it's only an absolute fail if I think,
Have you smashed, do you smash things?
yeah, I do.
What do you
It's quite hard to do.
What got smashed recently?
Sometimes there's a colour combination or just something that I can't think of. I'm not going to think of an example because but you have lots of things that don't sell, but then sometimes those things turn out to be slow burners. I think I've been quite good at saying, whatever, we're going to keep this one in the collection. The hellebore that Mary, so I've just completely forgot the painter's name, did for us years and years and years ago. It never really sold, but it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It just had to stay.
And have the bestsellers surprised?
Mary Fedden, sorry.
Have the bestsellers surprised you? What are the bestsellers?
Well, okay, so Hearts slightly took me by surprise. It came out of the same bit of studio time as Polka Dots, when there was just one girl in the studio then in Stoke, and we'd been fiddling around with the idea of confetti, sort of, a sort of blizzard of little things. And she did the Hearts after we'd done the Polka Dots, when I wasn't really, I think after I'd gone. I thought, well, that's a bit saccharine, isn't it? And perhaps it'll only be mugs. And someone who was mentoring me at the time dragged me up into the shop that we used to have. The offices were in the basement of the Fulham Road shop. And he hauled me upstairs and he went, just watch your customers. And people were climbing into the delivery van because they'd kind of basically taped my mouth over and tied me in the cupboard and ordered a lot of Hearts on everything. And the secret had been leaked, and there were people there literally they'd be waiting for the delivery and clambering into the delivery van to get it. And James said to me, look, sometimes you need to defer to your customers. This is a really good example of something it's got a simplicity that you're not seeing. And so I then went to work with Polly Reeford to photograph it and kind of make friends with it. And it's an absolute stalwart. And one of my best moments was meeting Tom Stoppard, who is one of my absolute heroes. And he said he'd given Serena a jug. The first present he'd ever given her was a jug with Hearts. And I just thought,
if it's good enough for Sir Tom.
yeah, exactly. Oh,
you were made a dame in the King's Birthday Honours in June. Congratulations for services to ceramics. And you said that the honour recognised not just your business success, but the impact, well, they said, the impact you've had on Stoke-on-Trent. How did you feel to be made a dame? How does that feel?
I was bowled over. What a colossal treat and what an enormous honour. I'm made in the way that makes me feel I haven't done nearly enough to deserve it. The things I wish I'd achieved in Stoke, which encompass all kinds of things like planting avenues all over the city, which would be so nice. Lots and lots of trees. It's not going to happen. I wish the pottery was much bigger. I wish we employed many more people. I wish there were many more people, because I was nipping at the heels of Susan Williams-Ellis and Portmeirion. I wish there was someone giving me a real kind of run for my money. I think, because what I want is for the industry to thrive, and I'm not remotely afraid of competition. I think more is more. That would be fantastic.
Does that concern you that there isn't someone nipping at your heels?
There are some businesses,
so there are,
but I don't
do you
have
feel
a strong
confident?
sense.
Do you feel optimistic?
In some ways, I think it's not my business. I mean, it's nothing to do with me. The future doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my children's generation, I've got a big aversion at the moment to the idea of trying to control the future. I think it's really important to start to step back. I mean, here I am sounding off, and it's very nice of you to listen, but I worry about the fact that you hit your 50s, and I'm now well into my 60s, and you sort of get the right to stand up and talk a lot, whereas I think it's much more important that people like me learn to listen, and to kind of make way. I remember watching my mum and her friends, and some of those women could not let go of the limelight. I think just on a familial level, that was a problem, and I think being able to kind of give it to the next generation is vital.
But is retirement in your vocabulary? I knew it.
No.
What is your version of stepping back?
I was dreading this bit of the conversation because I don't really know.
It's all right, there's only 5 minutes. We can't string it out too long.
Preferably some very long walks. I've done a couple, and I need to do much, much more of that. Long distance walking with a kind of spiritual destination. Yes, the P word, it's a pilgrimage. I want to do more of that for the sheer wanton fun of it.
In this
and also
country,
the
or?
light scares. Well, anywhere. I mean, I'd love to travel more. There was a fabulous woman on the radio yesterday talking about, after her divorce in her 40s, going off travelling like a teenager and meeting a Dutchman and jumping on the back of his motorbike.
That's your mother. There's going to be an 11 years younger.
I'm not looking for the Dutchman. Maybe the Enfield.
Maybe the backpacking. And what would Dame Emma CBE say to that 23-year-old overdrawn Emma?
Calm down. Don't get another terrible haircut. Be a bit kinder to yourself. I think we're quite bad at, and I don't mean sort of pamper yourself, just steady. I think I work really, really, really ridiculously hard. And it does seem still to be highly likely that a lot of, and the domestic work isn't just the endless cooking, it's not just the catering and cleaning, there's all the gluing the family together again and again and again that seems to fall to women. And I think about how tired I was in my 30s and 40s. And I would like to see if I could talk that 23-year-old into taking a more measured view, but I doubt I'd succeed.
I doubt you'd succeed. Our artisans are here.
I'm longing to meet them.
We're meeting them all later on. But to anyone who has a dream, but maybe not the confidence to see it through, what would your advice be? Because when you talk about that story, it's almost magical, that sort of how it all happened. Could somebody else do that?
Oh, God, yes. One of my favourite visions, which I carry with me really in a sort of like a talisman, was on holiday in Greece with a great friend and some of our children. And we were on an island that her family have been going to for 50 years. And so she knew it like the back of her hand. And so she was sort of, just deciding the itinerary. And there was this pie shop, which we kept passing, which I was obsessed. And there were two young mums. Their babies were in pushchairs, sort of behind them. And they were making and serving and selling these pies. And they were busy the shop was open from early in the morning till quite late at night. And they were, and their mums would quite often come in and take the pushchairs away and do some washing up. One of them do some washing up. But watching these two women having a lovely time together, making something very delicious, that clearly was just what everyone wanted. That's a business. I mean, it's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be something that you love. And their friendship and their interest in their own merchandise seemed to me like, there you go, that's all it's about. That would be great. Just do it. If you have an idea. I think if you're really reluctant, don't make yourself, because it's it is hard graft. But you're probably shy rather than work shy, in which case, go for it.
Final question. It's the Country Living Christmas market, so we're all feeling festive. What is Christmas Day in your household, and how many pieces of Emma Bridgewater ceramics do you think will get used?
In my household, I hope.
In your household?
Oh, loads. I mean, I have got about 50-50 other stuff. Old things of mum's, granny's, other granny. It's a good old mishmash. What's it like? It's messy and we eat far too much, and we're all quite good cooks and a lot of alpha personalities. It's quite a lot of rowing. And now that Matthew and I aren't married, there'll only be one church. He sometimes used to test the children to the max and make us go 2 or 3 times because he was the organist in several churches.
Okay, gosh.
We don't do that anymore. But church, definitely. Just a lot of food. It's got to be and delicious. We are quite picky. And the food, I mean, it is nice stuff that's local. I'm really lucky that it'll be in Norfolk again, on the coast. I've got a house near Blakeney, and I don't think all 4 of the children are coming, and they're not children, they're all grown-ups. But to my amazement, 3 of them are, so that's nice. And we'll try and watch a film, and we won't, and they'll be fighting about Monopoly, and we'll play a bit of Scrabble, but Kitty will win that. We all have to gang up on her.
It sounds
It's so
fabulous.
nicely predictable and cosy. I like a fire.
Yeah, it sounds exactly as you'd want an Emma Bridgewater Christmas Day to be. Thank you so much. That has been fantastic to chat and very inspiring. Thank you.
Very, very, very.
Thank you so much to Saskia and to Emma. That was fabulous. That's the end of our last talk here on the main stage for today. There's still time to shop. Don't miss, by the way, on this level at the far side of the balcony, the new artisan gallery, the teeny tiny startup businesses that have never done a show like this before. And they've just got some amazing things. So if you haven't quite managed to get round to them, don't have a little look before you go home. And thank you so much for coming. We hope you had a brilliant day. Thank you.